I was about to land one of my biggest jobs. Then they asked me a question I wasn't ready for.
Can you send me your certificate?
Yeah, London. Yeah, London, I like this one here. I get my reggae on this motherfucker. Check this out. I sold drugs in my younger days to pay bills. I sold everything, nigga. And it was hard to hustle around here, you had to be real. Can't tell me nothing about this, cause this what I live. My girl said she had a bad dream, I got killed. Spooked me out of good sleep inside of my crib. And then I started getting all these stupid ideas. Like rob a bank, if I try to shit, they might kill me, baby. I'm a clean nigga that's down to get a little filthy, baby. Bounce back, G-code, you live by it, you die by it, you get rich and you die trying. That's how you do it. Real niggas, we a dime breed. And it may sound complicated, but let me tell you what I believe, that I ain't never gonna be broke no more. I ain't never gotta sell dope no more. I ain't got a single PO no more. I ain't even gotta be in court no more. There ain't no place for real niggas. 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 Never gonna be broke. Never gonna go back. Never gonna have to go back to the old me and pull off my old act. Never gonna be bitch. Never not be scrapped. Never not be on it. Never not I ride to the full flats. Get the money right now while you're here. That's what they told me, all of my orders. So I'ma just play it by ear and fuck all these hoes cause they ain't important. Can't tell me it isn't my year. Don't need the support, don't need your endorsement. When you're showing me this way it is, they can ignore you, they gon' see more of you. These bitches ain't fuck with me then. What made them think I'ma fuck with them now? They barely found that my girl is a win. And she ain't this in, they be jumping the crowd. Fuck with me cause I'm a real nigga, we a dime breed. And it may sound complicated, but let me tell you what I believe, that I ain't never gonna be broke no more. I ain't never gotta sell dope no more. I ain't got a single PO no more. I ain't even gotta be in court no more. There ain't no place for real niggas. 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 Remember how I once was. Whole hood full of young thugs. We was making money stealing cars, but we made more money when we slung drugs. I was about to start jacking on everything I love. My big homie pulled me aside and said it'd be cool with a young blood. You still got a whole lot of life to live. You still got a whole lot of life to live. Nigga wanna board in the car in the crib so we could be happy like the Cosby kids. Now first I wanna say rest in peace to my past.
Okay.
And rest in peace to them presidents of that cash.
Let's get into this. Peace and love, peace and love. It's your brother Isaiah tapping in with another one for all the conscious brothers and sisters in the conscious community. Keeping the struggle, because we know that it's through the struggle that we grow. And also I like to say that the process is slow. It's not a quick process to learn how to enforce your rights when you've been deprived of truth, knowledge, and wisdom and understanding of how the system truly works. All right, the race is to those who endure the longest. You got to be able to stay in the journey. You got to go through all the necessary shortcomings. You got to, for when you first start, it might seem far-fetched. You might not believe that it's true. It can't be, it's a lie. You're trying things, it's not working. We all go through those phases of we have to have faith and belief in what we know to be true and correct and stand in the truth. The only thing that removes doubt is knowledge. So gaining the knowledge, getting the understanding that you need to have is paramount for you to stand in the truth, because if there wasn't any deceptive acts and practices going on, there wouldn't be codes and statutes for consumer fraud and deceptive practices. So understand, you see people teaching this stuff and then you say, oh, that don't work. These dudes just trying to run from they. I hate when a person get on there and don't want to pay their bills and always trying to find another way out. That's not what's going on. It ain't that a man is running from his responsibility. He's accepting his responsibility because he was running from his responsibility by paying the debts directly. His responsibility was not to pay with cash. His responsibility was to use his mind, his education, and learn how to assert his rights in accordance to what he agreed to. See, you're agreeing to things on a mental level, but you're operating on a physical level. You're not doing the things that are required by the agreements that you're making. All right? An agreement is a meeting of the minds. Okay? It's a meeting of the minds. But let me get into this, right? So I like to say I don't offer education. I mean, I don't offer legal advice. I only do this for education and informational purposes only. I like to acknowledge the Most High and extend that same love and courtesy and acknowledgement to his messages and prophets. I like to say peace to you and grand rising to those that are awakened and are aware of the time and actually what's happening. Okay, so today I want to go over what we call delegation of performance. All right. A delegation of performance is also known as an assignment of a right. So whenever you're trying to delegate performance of something that you're responsible for, you can delegate your performance to perform through an assignment of your rights of performance. So if you have a right to perform under an agreement that you've agreed performance to do a particular thing, or you've made a particular promise, then the assignment of that right would be the delegation of the performance to be performed by your assignment of rights. Now, a party may perform his or her duty. Now, why? The first thing I want you to pay attention to, it says a party. Why didn't it say the debtor? Why didn't it say the lessee? Why didn't it say the borrower? Why didn't it use a particular title to identify a specific party? All right? Because the party is the individual acting through one of those different individuals I just named, right? So a party is a party to an agreement. Now look, gotta look this up with some of y'all, right? To make sure you understand the legal definition of party, right? And you gotta, this is very important, right? This is very important because you might think you're the buyer. You might think you're the lessee. You might think you're the debtor. But what if you were a party to that agreement with the debtor? What if you were acting as a party in conjunction? Conjunction, right? If you were a party in conjunction and you just didn't know you were a party, you thought you were the actual person responsible because they had a similar name, pronounced and sound like you. Okay? Now, in law, a party is a person. Did it say that a party is a person, group, or a business that takes direct part in a legal case? A contract or a formal agreement. They have a direct stake in the outcome and hold specific legal rights and duties. All right. So in legal practice, a party is a person or an entity who takes part in a legal transaction. For example, a party with an immediate interest in an agreement or a deed, or a plaintiff, right? Or a defendant in a lawsuit. So it's either or. You get to choose whether you want to act as defendant or plaintiff, right? Because there's a creditor and a debtor relationship concerning the person. And the third party is the person who is a stranger to the transaction, right? Contract or proceeding. A party in a lawsuit or the plaintiff or the petitioner. See, it's telling you. So in a lawsuit, it's supposed to be the plaintiff and the petitioner bringing the case. So that means that the prosecutor is the petitioner. He brings the case. And once you are noticed that the taxpayer is being charged, you make an appearance as a plaintiff to get to demand relief against the taxpayer, because you are a plaintiff. You're not a defendant. The defendant is the principal, the account being charged in the proceedings, right? Or a defendant or a respondent defending against one. So a party is somebody who participates in a transaction. Now, what if I told you that you were a party in the transactions, but you were accepting liability of another person's obligation that you may not be aware of because you may not know that you have another party in connection with you? Now, a person concerned is having or taking a part in any affair, matter, transaction, or proceeding. Let me make this a little bit bigger, just in case I have trouble seeing. Okay. So a person concerned or having or taking part in any affair, matter, transaction, or proceeding concerning individually. See, parties. The term parties include all persons who are directly interested in the subject matter and issue, who have a right to make defense, control the proceedings, or appeal from the judgment. Strangers are persons who do not possess these rights. A party is a technical word and has a precise meaning in legal parlance. By it is understood he or they by or against whom a suit is brought, whether in law or equity, the party plaintiff or defendant, whether composed of one or more individuals, and whether natural or legal person. See, they recognize the natural and the legal person. They are parties in the writ and parties on the record, and all others who may be affected by the suit indirectly. So the law recognizes a natural person and a legal person. All right, because it recognizes a man, but it also recognizes that man's legal capacity. So if a man is operating, then he's operating as a legal person, because legally the system only deals through persons. So if a man is doing any business, he has to do it legally, and legally he's operating as an individual person. Okay, and a lot of people get confused. All right. So a party may perform his or her duty through a delegate. All right, what's a delegate? Okay, let's look that up. See, because you have to be, now, you can't assume, you can't guess, or none of that stuff. We have to be in the state of knowingness, right? All right. A delegate is a person chosen, appointed, or authorized to act as a representative and vote or make decisions on behalf of another person or group. As a legal verb, it means to transfer power, authority, duties, or responsibility to another agent or a subordinate. Now let's keep going. As a noun, representative, a person sent to a conference, political convention, or legislative assembly to present a specific constituency. In contract law, a third party who is authorized or trusted by the delegator, right, to perform duties and obligations required under an existing contract. Let's go here real quick. So a delegate means giving another person or an agent the responsibility responsibility lies in the performance agreement. So a delegate means giving another person or agent the responsibility of exercising the performance agreed to in the contract. Okay, make sure y'all like, share, subscribe, and put this live out. Many people that need this information, share the information, share the live with other people, because I'm going over some very important stuff that all of us need to know. Not just you, your brother, your sister, your cousin, your mother, your friends. Everybody needs to be aware of certain rights that they have that they may have never been taught. These concepts that I'm breaking down right now to help you get a better understanding of your fiduciary duty. Now, 3 parties are involved in this act, okay? The one who sets the obligation to perform under the contract is called the delegator, okay? That would be the delegator. And the one who should take responsibility for exercising the duty is called the delegate. And the one who accepts performance, he is called the obligee. Right? If the delegate fails to meet the requirements of the contract, the obligee could select to take the failure as a breach of contract. All right, see that? If the delegee fails to meet the requirements of the contract, it says the obligee could select and take failure as a breach of contract. Now let's look this up, because we know that the taxpayer is known as the obligor. So the obligee, let's look this up here. All right, because we want to make sure that we are definite, understanding the terms of what we're reading. Okay? Okay. So obligee, an obligee is a person or group who is owed a duty, payment, or performance by someone else. Wait a minute. So could this mean that they owe me a right and they have a duty to me, but I also have a duty to them to make sure that whatever their duty is to me is that they perform their duty so that my duty is performed? Meaning that I can't complete my part of the transaction unless he completes his part, because I depend on his agreement in order to fulfill mine, because my agreement is to be loaned by him. He's my lender. And in order for me to pay what's being lent, I got to actually depend on my lender. Okay, he's the obligee. I'm the obligor, but my obligation is based off the obligee's performance. Now look, an obligee is a person or a group who is owed a duty. What you think the duty is owed? Wait a minute, because you ain't feeling it. You ain't feeling it. Let me pull this up, because that's the thing. We think we understand everything. What does it mean when a duty is owed? Because I ain't gonna let you think you're smarter than me. I'm gonna show you that to be smart, you have to be able to dissect and discern what information is actually saying. If you can't dissect and break this stuff down to get a proper understanding, you're not ready yet. You need to come join me so I can teach you and educate you and level you up. You want to level up? Come join Build a Better Minds. It says, owe a duty, right? It's the first main part of, what does that say? Negligence. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, let's read it again. Owed a duty is the first main part of negligence or personal injury claim. It means one has a legal duty to act with reasonable care so that they do not hurt others. If they fail, right, in this duty and cause harm, they can be found at fault. Wait a minute. Let's go back. Where was I at? All right, let's go back. So you mean to tell me that when I'm reading this, if I'm reading it right, it says if the delegate fails to meet the requirements of the contract, the obligee could select or take this failure as a breach of contract, or could claim all remedies due to the third party's breach of third-party beneficiary being damaged. Right? In constitutional law, a delegate means to transfer one of the specific authorities by one of the three branches of government to another agency. Delegation means the process that divides administrative actions or decisions making to a lower level of agency in the field of administrative law. In some states, legislators also ruled that trustees shall exercise reasonable care, skill, and caution in some fields like selecting agents, establishing the scope of delegation, or reviewing agents' actions to fulfill the requirements of the duty, right? So the obligee owes the, right? It says the obligee is the person or the entity to whom an obligation is owed. It is a term that is often used in contract law. Look, an obligee can be who? A creditor or a promisee. Wait a minute. It can be a creditor or a promisee. For example, in principal surety relationships, an obligee is the creditor who may enforce payment or performance by either the principal or the surety, right? So the obligee will always be the one that's owed the right to receive payment, right? And if the payment is not made to him that's due on the contract, then the obligee can enforce collection of the unpaid balance that's due to him to pay, because it's not due to him to collect, it's due to him to pay, okay? And because you're not making the payment, he has to collect it, because you won't make him pay, okay? Because you don't understand what's going on. So you become surety, you become obligated under a breach of security. You issued a security where you promised security to the lender and you did not provide security under the security, and the lender is collecting the interest due under the security, under a breach of a security, right? Now, the term obligee is often used in family law context. It often refers to someone who is legally obligated to receive something from another person, okay? So what is he? He's obligated to receive what? An assignment of your rights to collect the due balances that he approved you for, right? So he's obligated to receive your claim of payment of the amounts due, right? For example, under California, an obligee is a person to whom the duty of child support is owed, or in whose favor a support order or a judgment determining percentage of a child has been issued. Okay, so the obligee, and this goes a couple of ways too, because you know it goes indirectly. So the obligee also could represent the man or the woman being promised the amount of the debtor's obligation. So an obligee could also be the person who is owed payment of his principal obligation. So if I'm using a taxpayer, the taxpayer is approved for rent, I would be the obligee under the lease because I'm the one who's entitled to receive the obligation of the principal, right? That's why right here it says creditor or promisee. See, the promisee is the person to receive a promise from a promisor typically within the context of contractual agreements. The promisee has the rights to expect performance or fulfillment of the promise. So if I get approved for rents, and rents is the lender's promise or pledge to me under his lease is due rents, then as the promisee being promised a lease of rents, I'm expecting performance of those rents to be fulfilled to reduce the lease down to zero as part of my extension of credit. That the lender would provide the amount of rent stated in his warranty, which is his lease agreement, where he's warranting to me rents that I have the rights to use for my personal usage. Now, the promisor is the person who makes the promise to the promisee, typically as a part of a contractual agreement. So when they make the promise and offer the lease of rent, or they offer the installment agreement of installments, or they offer you a loan agreement of installments, anytime you receive an agreement, the balances within it is what's being loaned, but it comes through in an agreement to receive it. So the promisor would always be the one who delivers the instrument that you sign and accept to pay, meaning you're accepting to pay what he's promising to give. You can't pay unless the promisor delivers what he promised to you, and then you can pay it. But if he fails to deliver any part of his promise to the promisee automatically goes into a default because he has nothing to pay with, right? Typically as a part of a contractual agreement. If the contract is enforceable, the promisor has the legal obligations to fulfill the terms of the promise, right? Now watch this. I'm gonna show you something. Let me show you how you gotta do this. In contracts, is the lender considered, watch this, the promiser and the consumer, the promisee? Oh, let's look. I gotta see. In typical consumer loan contracts, the lender is usually what? I can't make it up, man. Brother Isaiah, slow down. You're on fire over there, boy. Slow it down. Brother Isaiah on fire. Listen. So in typical consumer transactions, right, the lender is usually the one making the promise. Who promises to provide what? Come on, man. Y'all gonna have to put me at the top of the conscious community as one of the hardest ones that put this demonstration down for the people, man. Ain't nobody else putting it down. Like, and if they is, they've been watching me. If they got any, they've been watching me. All right? This ain't no Patrick Devine or none of that. I validate what Patrick Devine put into the atmosphere. He never showed you nothing, but I show you everything. All right? I prove to you who's the debtor, who's the creditor, who's entitled, and who's not. If you understand what I'm putting down, you can free yourself. But if you're incompetent, then you're stuck. I'm just trying to give it to you because this demonstration, this little simple measure that I just showed you is very powerful. And I ain't even got a chance to even get into the topic yet. I only read like 2 sentences off the actual topic that I wanted to go into. I'm too busy looking up definitions to break it down to you so you can get a better understanding because this is the way you learn, okay? In a typical consumer loan contract, the lender is usually the promiser who promises to provide the funds. What funds? In a lease, it's rents. In an installment, it's installments. I've been saying this shit for a minute and y'all still don't get it. All right? They are the debtors. They are the ones obligated. Once they say you approve, then they got to give you the funds. And the consumer is the promisee, right? The borrower. Promisee, borrower, promisee, borrower. Come on, man. Wake up. All right? Who receives them? However, both parties are promising. Oh, wow. Did you know that? So we both making what? Reciprocal promises. Why? Because that's what a contract is. What is a contract? A set of reciprocal promises. Well, Brother Isaiah, you just saying that. Can you prove that to us? Like, I mean, I ain't challenging your knowledge because you're very knowledgeable, brother, but I just, you say you like show and prove, right? So, I mean, I see what it's saying on the screen that both parties are promisers, right? And the promisee, because each person makes a legal promise to the other. The lender, as promiser, the lender promises to give the money. The consumer, as promisee, you have the rights to receive that money. And the consumer, as promiser, you promise to pay the money back with interest. Wait a minute. Oh, wow. Did you know that? The lender, as promisee, the lender has the rights to receive those payments. Mutual promises, a bilateral contract. Most loans are two-sided agreement. Okay. Consideration, each party gives something and gets something. And both sides must follow through on their word. Okay? So, now we understand. Lender actually the person. Okay? Now that you understand, we has a actual curse. If they fail in the duty and cause harm, they can be found at fault. So if the lender never provides the amount approved or the loan balances to pay the loan down to zero, if you get approved for rents in the lease, and then on the date of maturity of the rents are not being applied to reduce your loan, and the lender defaults in providing the actual amount of rents that he approved, then that will automatically cause negligence, right? Right? Oh, let's look at this word, negligence. So Brother Isaiah is on fire. Negligence is the failure to behave with the level of care that a reasonable person would have exercised under the same circumstance. Either a person's actions or omissions of actions can be found negligent. The omission of the action is considered negligent only when a person had a duty to act, e.g., a duty to help someone because of one's own previous conduct, right? So wait a minute, let me take you somewhere else, right? I'm gonna show you how all this stuff lines up. So we're gonna go to what's called the Uniform Trust Code. Let me show you something. Uniform Trust Code. I'll put you on game. Now you say Uniform Trust Code, bro. I ain't never heard of that. You ain't never heard of the uniform? Oh, you ain't know we was already locked into trust already. Everything is already operating in trust. Yeah, that's why you can just automatically claim trust, because they're already holding property belonging to somebody else, which creates a trust relationship. I dropped my daughter off at school, that's trust. Why? Because she's being entrusted in their care until I come back and get her, right? That's trust, right? Let me show you something. All right, so this is called the trust code. I know you probably never heard of it. And I could have did a whole live on just this topic right here, but Brother Isaiah, that ain't what I came. I ain't come here to talk about trust. I came here today to be talking about science, okay? It just so happened to have to tap in, right? So the definitions, right? Action. So what is an action? An action with respect to an act of a trustee includes a failure to act. What was we just reading about? Then we say that the trustee is the promiser and that the consumer is the promisee. And if a consumer applies for a loan, what is he applying for? Okay, so if the trustee don't deliver, then what is that? That is a failure to act. That he takes an action against you. An action is an adverse action. When they don't do what they're supposed to do and they try to make you do it instead of them doing it. Okay? Let me get on up out of there. I ain't come to talk about trust code. We're gonna get on up out of it, right? So let's get back. All right, because this is what I came to talk about right here. Right? So this is where we started at right here. I did have to jump around a little bit. Man, y'all make sure y'all get the light. Don't be staring at the screen. Don't be staring at the screen. Make sure you hit the like button, you share, and all of that, man. You get the love back. You straight up. That's why I don't be coming on here really showing love like I supposed to, because y'all don't show me no damn love. Y'all don't really give Brother Isaiah the credit that he's entitled to for the information that I'm putting out. This ain't nothing. I got some fire, for real, that I know everybody needs, but y'all don't show love. And I feel like a lot of y'all just want my information, but y'all don't want to give me no credit for it. You want to get the information, but not credit the person who's supplying the information. It's just like buying food, but never identify the supply. You know what I'm saying? Hell up out of here, man. Everybody want to be in the position of knowing this and knowing contract law, but they don't know. So they want to get it from somebody else, but they don't want to give credit. That's the reason why you can't get the knowledge, because you're not fair, you're not just. You know what I'm saying? And that's why my cup overflowing over, right? A cup overflowing with knowledge, with wisdom, with understanding. Come on now. Now, it says right here, now we're going to read it again. This time, after I went over all these definitions, you should have a better understanding of what we're reading, right? So a party may perform his or her duty through a delegate, right? Unless otherwise agreed, or unless the other party has substantial interest in having his or her original promiser perform or control the acts required by the contract. So when we read this, when it says a party, right, may perform his or her duties through a delegate, right? So the party that is talking about is the creditor, can perform his duties through a delegate, another person, right? Unless the person that he's delegating to perform the principal's obligations, because see, the creditor is also a party to the contract, and the creditor can delegate to you the obligations of the principal, unless otherwise agreed, or unless the party you has a substantial interest in having the original promiser perform or control the acts required by the contract. No delegation of performance relieves the party delegated of any duty to perform or any liability for breach. So even though you're delegated, it don't relieve you from making sure that performance is done, or any breach of the contract. If anybody is to breach, it don't relieve you from addressing that breach of contract. You still got to be on your stuff, right? It says, unless otherwise agreed, all the rights of either the seller or the buyer, right? I can't make it up. Go get your mom. Go get your auntie. Go get your cousin. Go get them and tell them, Brother Isaiah, I'm dropping Jews right now. It says, unless otherwise agreed, all the rights. Wait a minute, we're going to look that up too, because we want to know what it means to have rights, right? All the rights of either the seller or the buyer can be assigned, except where the assignment will materially change the duty of the other party. So as long as the assignment don't change that party's performance, it can be assigned, or increase materially the burden or risk imposed on him or her by his or her contract, or impair materially his or her chance of obtaining return performance. A right to damages for breach of the whole contract, or a right arising out of the assigner's due performance of his or her entire obligation, can be assigned despite the agreement otherwise. And then it tells you right here, the creation or the attachment, perfection, or enforcement of a security interest in the seller's interest. Wait a minute. Is this a remedy? Is it telling us a remedy right here? Is it telling you what you need to do in order to acquire a right in the contract? It's saying the creation. So somebody got to create or attach or perfect or enforce a security interest in the seller's interest. So that means that the seller has an interest in the lease of rents, but somebody else also has an ownership interest in those same rents. So when that person creates, attach, or perfects the security interest that he acquired when he signed the lease, if he's to accept and claim that interest as a claim of right, then he would have a security interest in the same goods that the lender has interest in. But the thing is, he can identify those as goods belonging to him, as consumer goods purchased by him, which supersedes the lender's security interest, because the goods were created and manufactured for the benefit of the actual owner, which is the consumer. He's just unaware of his rights, right? It says, under the contract is not a transfer that materially changes the duty or increases materially the burden or risk imposed on the buyer, or impairs materially the buyer's chance of obtaining return performance within the purview of the subsection of this section, unless and only to the extent that the enforcement actually results in the delegation of material performance of the seller. So it's saying that if the buyer was to claim a security interest, as the owner was to identify that he's the registered owner of the goods and that the goods were purchased and bought for him for his personal needs, and when he looks at any bill or invoice and say, hey, I acknowledge this as goods bought by me. These are amounts due to me under my loan agreement. I hereby accept these amounts and apply these amounts towards my loan. Why? Because that's the reason why you applied for them, to use them to pay off the loan agreement, right? So when you claim that security interest, why would you claim security interest? Because when you sign a security, the interest is what generates on a month-to-month basis. The obligations that are due are interest. When you sign, you're agreeing to apply your interest and pay your interest to the lender. Your interest accumulates every 30 days. When you have an interest accumulates on a 30-day basis. So if you were to acknowledge that contract and claim that you are the secured creditor and claim and perfect the security interest against the lender's offer as the promisee, and accept that promise that the lender is making to you and perfect that interest, and then send it back as a claim of ownership rights, then the lender would have to perform. Why? Because you have a security interest that stands against his interest, which is a higher perfected interest, which gives you first priority, right? Because okay, now let's keep going. In the event that the creation, the attachment, or the perfection and enforcement of a security interest remains effective, but the seller is liable to the buyer for damages caused by the delegation, to the extent that the damages could not reasonably prevent the buyer. The reason why it's talking about the seller damaging the buyer, right, and how he's liable to, because the holder in due course rule, is that anybody that receives a consumer product is subject to all the rights, the claims, and the defenses that a consumer has against the seller, the original seller of the product, to receive the due balances that the seller promised him. The seller is the promiser. Anybody that gives you any kind of contract is the one promising to pay, but you got to deliver the order to them. They can't pay without your order because they're your good, but they are responsible to pay what you promised, okay? Because they are the ones to fulfill the order if you draw it, right? Because it's a reciprocal promise. They promise and you promise. If you fulfill your promise, they'll fulfill theirs, and their promise is to make sure your promise is done. So both of us are dependent on the same promise. A court having jurisdiction may grant other appropriate relief, including cancellation of the contract, the sale, or injunction against enforcement of the security interest, or consummation of the enforcement. Now, what are we reading right here? Brother Isaiah, what are you reading to us? What Brother Isaiah is reading to you, see, when you're dealing with a creditor, We can't use deferred debt collection practices because he's not a debt collector. All right? A creditor is a lender, a promisor, someone who offers goods or services to you on a deferred payment basis. He is not a debt collector. In any event a lender collects, it's because of a default in the security interest. Someone acquired an interest in an asset and didn't use it, or defaulted on the rights to use interest in an agreement, and the lender continues to use the same interest offered and retains his rights in the interest until it's accepted. If it remains unaccepted, and the lender offered it, he has the rights to continue and control until the person who is promised that amount accepts the promise and claims a perfected interest in order to secure his title. Security interest is what secures your rights. If you hold a security, you perfect your rights by claiming the interest as goods due to you, right? Check it out. Now it says, unless the circumstances indicate to the contract, right? A prohibition of an assignment of the contract. So unless you get something from a lender, your promisor, your lender, who's supposed to loan you the money to pay with, unless his contract forbids an assignment of it, to be construed as born, only the delegation to the assignee, right, of the assigner's performance, right? An assignment of the contract, or all of my rights under the contract, or an assignment in similar general terms is an assignment of rights. And unless the language or the circumstances as to the assignment for security indicate the contrary, it is a delegation of performance of the duty of the assigner, and its acceptance by the assignee constitutes a promise by him or her to perform those duties. So if they assign a contract to you and you accept it, then you are promising to perform and pay the rent. If they assign anything to you and you sign it, then you're accepting performance of that person's duty. And if you assign a contract to somebody else, they accept performance of your duty, right? So if you were, it says the promise is enforceable either by the assigner or the party to the original contract. The other party may treat the assignment, which delegates performance, as creating reasonable grounds for insecurity. It may, without prejudice to his or her rights against the assigner, demand assurance from the assignee. So at any given time, man, you can claim an interest, perfect your rights in the interest against the seller in the same goods that he's trying to sell, right? He can't sell the goods to you if you perfect and claim your interest, meaning you have recorded and accepted your rights to receive those balances against the lender's offer. If you were to go and acknowledge that instrument and then was to record an acceptance of your rights as the holder of the instrument to receive all due balances stated under the lender's pledge, and as the holder, I claim my rights and direct the disposition of all payments to be made to me, and tell them to send it to you at your bank is located. That's an acceptance. That shows that you agree to receiving the balances that the lender is saying is due, and you're claiming affect the interest in those balances to receive them as part of the claim or the loan. Very important that you understand. It's very important that you understand that, because understanding is key in order for you to be able to do what's required, right? Under any of these obligations up. Right, so let me see. All right, so it says general obligation. The obligation of the seller is to transfer and deliver, and the buyer is to pay. in accordance with the contract. So the seller, right, which is the promisor, which I've already showed you, that the seller is the promisor. What is he promising? He's promising due balances. The borrowing balance from who? The lender. Through what? An agreement. Okay. And what? The term to keep those balances. And then it's accepted by the borrower, then he can actually use those balances in accordance with what the contract was provided for. Let me see if there's anything else I want to. I think that's it right now. I'm gonna stop right there. I ain't gonna give y'all too much. I just wanted to give you a delegation of performance and an assignment of rights. And it's very simple to assign your rights. Pretty simple. All you gotta do is say, I assign all my rights under this contract to the order of whoever, and that's an assignment of rights. Just like that. I mean, it's assigned. And it's a delegation of performance once it's accepted. So that's that. You cross your T's, you dot your I's, and things like that. So y'all take the right, do your homework on it. Go back, read over it as many times, so look up as many different words, phrases. The same way I was showing you how I look it up, how I take phrases, how I take words, and how I look it up to make sure I comprehend what it's trying to tell me. You know what I'm saying? So I can get a better understanding of who the obligor is, who the obligor is, who the prime is, what's due, all of that. You got to look all that up. Be naive and think you know it already because you speak English. You're going to get lost because you don't know what these words mean. You even got to look up the word people legally. What's the legal definition? Because you might think it means what you think it means, but when you look up the legal definition, you be like, damn, I ain't know people meant that. You know what I'm saying? You might think you know what something means, then when you look it up, you be like, damn. So you look up the legal definition of exchange, like we say, we exchanging goods. So when you look up the legal, matter of fact, let me show it to you. I'm just gonna prove it to you. Just to show you don't understand what you think you understand. You think you understand, you don't know what this stuff means. You gotta look it up. Watch this. And this is like exchange, like when you exchanging money, exchanging something from one hand to the next. Let's look and see what the legal definition of exchange is. So an exchange is a reciprocal transfer of property, goods or services like value, being value between two parties, unlike a standard sale, which involves a transfer of property solely for money consideration. An exchange relies on a barter or swapping assets, though it can include partial cash payment known as boot. But an exchange is a barter. It's not what we've been taught, right? We've been taught wrong, right? Watch this. Let me show you. When used in this chapter, the term exchange means an organization, association, or group of persons. So an exchange is a group of people, whether they're incorporated or unincorporated, which constitutes, maintains, or provides a marketplace or facility for bringing together purchasers and sellers of securities. So an exchange is somebody or a group of people that get together that offer a marketplace where you can come and buy securities from them for cars, houses. All right, they're known as a Security Exchange Commission. They are commissioned through the Security Exchange Commission to issue securities, right? Now check this out. It says to bring together purchasers and sellers. That's why when you come, they bring you, and then they get a bank to approve it because they're bringing y'all together. of securities or for otherwise performing with respects to the securities, the functions commonly performed by a stock exchange, right? As the term is generally understood. It includes the marketplace and the market facility maintained by such exchange. So when you go to the dealership, you at a stock exchange. When you go buy furniture from us, you at a stock exchange, man. When you go buy phone service, understand that these are exchanges and what they're exchanging. Okay? Go back. See? So that's what I mean. See? If you automatically just assume, you know what the stuff mean already, and you ain't gonna never get it, man. You ain't gonna never get it because in your mind, you've already told yourself that you know these words and that you already know what they mean already. So when you're reading a lot of the stuff, right? To you it sounds like regular English, like it means the same thing, but a lot of the stuff don't mean what you think it means. Now watch this. Let me show you. They be like, Brother Isaiah, how this Brother Isaiah so knowledgeable, man? This brother keen with his knowledge. How he get so cuz I study, bro? Hold up. Look, an amount due is the total sums of money that a person or a business is legally required to pay to a creditor or a seller, right? Or a tax agency by a specific date, right? It represents an enforceable debt or an obligation that has matured and it is presently payable. So when you get a bill that says an amount due, you have something that is payable. All right, it says due refers to a definite obligation. So what is an obligation? Look, obligation means hold up, y'all can't see it. Let me share it with you. Let me go back because I'm moving fast. All right, so due refers to a definite obligation such as a debt or a claim. So you can't have a debt without a claim because the debt is the owner's claim. If it's your debt, then it's your claim. If it's your claim, it's your debt. So whenever there's a debt in your name, you are the one to make the claim for the balances of that debt. Those balances is what secures you. If you let somebody else secure or perfect the debt on your behalf, then they get to collect the balance because it's your debt, right? Now it says due refers to a definite obligation such as debt or a claim of a right. See, a claim of right, either it's your debt or it's either your claim of right. Can I prove this to you? Yes, I can. I'm gonna show you what debt or right of claim means in this sentence. I'm gonna take you to another part of the code and show you what that means. I'm gonna show you how cold I am with it, right? Due refers to a definite obligation, such as a debt or a claim of right that is owed or is payable. So when something is due, it is either owed or payable to a specific person. The term often means that the obligation is presently enforceable, meaning it can be enforced. But it can also indicate that the obligation has not been paid when required, meaning that the lender has not paid the damn debt and it's still due when it should have been paid. Why the hell is it still coming to you as a due obligation when it was due when you issued? I issued this debt as a due balance. So why is it still due? That means somebody's in breach of their obligation because it shouldn't still be due if it was issued as a due obligation. It should now be payable or being applied. So that just goes to show you don't understand your agreements because you keep allowing your debt to be due after it's been issued as a due obligation. It should be credited now. It should be paid now. It was due when I signed it over to you. So why is it still due when it come back to you? You know what I mean? Come on now. Common damn sense. All right? When required that it will become payable at a future date. See? So when you get that bill, that's actually a payable instrument. It can be paid. Overdue refers to specifically to an obligation that has been paid when due, while payable refers to an obligation that is owed but is not yet required to be paid. All right, due also means just, proper, and or reasonable. Due care or due diligence, meaning the reason why I'm saying due care or due diligence because whoever is holding your rights to receive those amounts has to act in due diligence and due care. That's why every month he got to make sure he send you a bill, tell you how much is due, and make sure that it comes within a specified time frame because he has to act within due care. Now, what's an obligation? An obligation means a duty to do or not to do something. Wait a minute. Before I go there, I said I was going to show you what this meant, right? Right? I'm going to show you what both of these things mean, right? So due refers to a definite obligation such as a debt or a claim of right. All right, so right here. So an obligation, remember this, obligation refers to such as a debt or a claim of right. So whenever you got an obligation, either that obligation is considered to be your debt or that obligation is giving you a right to make a claim. Now, can I prove that what this is saying is true? Yes, I can. Let me take you to it. Hold up. Y'all gonna learn today. Y'all gonna learn today. Make sure you tap the screen, like, share the live out, because I'm on fire right now. Tell them Brother Isaiah on fire right now. Check this out. All right, so now, where you taking this, Brother Isaiah? I'm teaching you. I'm teaching you how to read commerce, right? Because they didn't teach you how to read it, right? So, hold on, let me go back real quick. Let me go back. Okay, y'all remember this right here, where it says obligation. Keep the word obligation in your mind, such as a debt. So an obligation is either a debt or an obligation is either a right to make a claim, right? Now look, I'm gonna show it to you right here, where we just read. Now what do we read right here? UCC 8201, issue, right? With respects to an obligation. There go that word again. Obligation. On, so either this is pertaining to your obligation on or your defense to a security. So an issuer includes the person that what? Places or authorizes the placing of its name on a security certificate, other than an authenticating trustee, register, or a transfer agent, or the like, to evidence a share. So if your name is on a signature card, a contract, a mortgage note, you're not the debtor. You are the party participating who has acquired an interest against the debt. Remember that. Or other interest in its property or in an enterprise. Or evidences its duty to what? Make a claim represented by the certificate. You see what I'm saying? It creates what? A share, a participation. So what do you mean you a debtor? You ain't no damn debtor. You only a debtor if it's your obligation on the security. But I believe the obligation on the security is the U.S. taxpayer. The name on the security is the all cap name, not your true God-given name. So if your name is signed on there, then maybe you are a party participating in a right to receive something. And somebody's misrepresenting your position because they know you incompetent. But your signature on the security don't represent you as a debtor. It represents your participation to receive an interest. What interest? The amounts that the lender is offering through the security. Is it starting to make sense now? Wait a minute. Wow, that's cold-blooded, Brother Isaiah. You dropped the jewel on that one right there. I like that. Yeah, I know you do. Hold up, I ain't done with you yet. Hold up. Where was I? Let me find it. Dang, I might have lost my look. Because I had something else I was going to tap into. I think I lost my little card stuff, though. Let me see. Dang. Okay. So that's that. Now we go back to obligation. Okay? Now remember, in obligation, it says means a duty to do or not to do something. Okay? It is legal, in a legal sense, obligation is a civil law concept. An obligation can be created voluntarily, such as one arising from a contract, quasi-contract, or a unilateral promise. An obligation can also be created involuntarily, such as an obligation arising from tort, and so forth. So an obligation binds together two or more definite persons or entities. So whenever obligation is presented, it's binding together two or more persons. That's the reason why you become obligated, because you're operating with a legal person. Legally, your identity creates a legal characteristic of who you are as a person in commerce. So even though you are a real living man, in commerce, you are a legal person. So you play duality roles. You wear hats. So as a legal person, you are a buyer. As a legal person, you are a leasee. As a legal person, you can be a purchaser. As a legal person, you can be a defendant. As a legal person, you can be an inmate. Only legal persons can wear titles. Men don't wear those titles. Don't wear the title. Only through persons. Okay? And the person is what binds you under whatever obligation the person is bound to. So if it's a clerk and you sign, then you become bound as surety on the clerk for your position as a clerk. Understand this more than one. Okay? So, therefore, the legal meaning of an obligation does not only denote a duty, but it also denotes the correlative right. One party has an obligation means another party has a correlative right. And the person or the entity who was liable for the obligation is called the obligor. I keep trying to tell you, you are not the taxpayer. But you are a person in correlation with that record. And the person or the entity who holds the correlative right to the obligor is called the obligee. Didn't I just tell you? Remember we was going over this earlier and I said that the obligee is the person to whom the obligation is owed. In the term that often used in contracts, an obligee can be a creditor or a promisor. And I told you that the creditor, we are the creditor of, and we are the obligee because we are the creditor of the taxpayer, and we are also the promisee from the promisor. Remember I showed y'all that the promisor was the lender, and that the promisee is always the one, the borrower being promised the promise, but the obligee is the assignee or the third party with the buyer that's acting as the obligee. Remember, I explained all this to you, but if you don't read it, you'll never understand what it's talking about. That's why it's telling you right here. An obligation binds together two or more definite persons or entities. Therefore, the legal meaning of obligation does not only denote, but denote a correlative right. That's why they say a debt is a claim of right, because it's a debt to the debtor, but it's a claim of right to the one in relation to him, the other party. One party has an obligation, means another party has a right. So if your person has a debt, then you have a right to pay it. It's only right that you receive the payment, right? And the person or entity who was liable, because the person is the entity. The man is the one using it. And the person or the entity who holds the correlative right. An obligation is called the obligee. So we're both identified as persons. A man is identified as a natural person. His legal identity is identified as a legal person. So when the code identifies, it just says person, but it's in relation to both characteristics of who you are. All right? Now, I'm going to show you this last thing and I'm out of here. Right here. See, when you study and you put the work in, you'll know what this is talking about. No matter where you read it at, no matter where you come across it, you'll be able to interpret and know what it's talking about. So right here, when it says the term obligation means a duty to do or not to do something. So let me show you. Where is that? Where does this language come from? Where does this language originate from? Let me show you. Let me show you. Okay, we're going to the Indian Contract Act. Why are we going there? Because everything is a contract, right? And when you read and you understand, if you study like you say you study, if you really qualified to teach the people, then you should be able to do what I'm doing right here. You should be able to read stuff and be able to go to a whole act that breaks down what you was reading. See, look, let me show you. This Contract Act, what does it say right here? It says, in this act, the following words and expressions are used in the following sense unless a contrary intention appears from the contract. It says, when one person signifies to another his willingness to do or to abstain from doing anything. Ain't that what we just read? With a view of obtaining the assent of the other person to such act or abstinence, he is said to make a proposal. So wait a minute, let's go back. Read. So, an obligation means a duty to do or not to do something. So when somebody has an obligation, they either got to do it or they're refusing to do what they're obligated to do, right? So when we go back here and we look at the Contract Act, and it says when one person signifies to another his willingness. So what's another word for signify? Let's look this up. Show you. Okay. In law, signify means to express. Signifies means to express, indicate, or declare a meaning, an intention, or legal consent through words. Wait a minute. Writings and actions, or conventional signs. It shows a communication. It shows or communicates a legal state of mind, status, or effect. Wait a minute. Would that be a meeting of the minds? Hold on. Because they don't teach like this nowhere else. I ain't seen nobody teaching like this, okay? Nobody. And if they teach anywhere near this, they have to be following Brother out there. They had to. You know what I'm saying? Because I drop my information in a unique way. So anybody that's correlating in the way that I drop, they let you know that they've been watching me. You know what I'm saying? I'm the only one that teaches certain concepts. And if anybody's teaching any concept that's applicable to what I teach as far as how I understand the codes and statutes, that's because you watch me. No one on TikTok is teaching what I'm teaching unless they follow me. Period. I'm the only one who knows this the way that I understand it. Nobody teaches it the way I teach it because they don't understand what I know. And if they have any bit of an understanding, it's because they've been following me. Facts. All right? So, to signify something is to express it. Now, let's go back to the code. Because I'm going to show you how you learn how to read. Because a lot of people don't know how to read, right? Now, in the act, the following words and expressions are used in the following sense unless a contrary intent appears from the context. When a person signifies. So when a person signifies, when a person expresses, right? Or gives some kind of express written intent to do something, right? So when one person signifies to another his willingness to do or to abstain from doing anything with a view of obtaining the assent of the other person to such act or action, he is said to make a proposal, right? So if somebody was to issue me a bill saying that an amount was due to me on a specific date, he's signifying his willingness to either pay me that amount or withhold that amount from me. You see what I'm saying? With a view of getting my assent to the proposal being made. Now, wait a minute, brother. I said, you know what? When I first read this, I did not understand that. But like I read this thing like 10 times trying to understand just what this first interpretation clause meant. Because it didn't make sense to me. I read it so many times and I just couldn't figure out what it was trying to say. It took me time to come to the right understanding of what it's saying. And it's going to take you time to learn because you got to educate yourself. That's why reading and studying is paramount, because it helps clear in the missing blanks. Fine, I can't make it up. For the statement of an object and reasoning for a bill, which is based on the report of Her Majesty Commissioner appointed to prepare the body substance law for India. All right. Man, y'all just don't know how hard this thing is, man. So whenever they deliver you a bill or something, they're actually making a proposal either to pay that balance for you, or they're making a proposal to not pay the balance and withhold it from you and just give you a notification of what's due. So either the notification is a right to accept receiving, or it's just a notification of non-payment. It's either which way. What determines whether or not what it is you. You're the one that determines what it is. Because either you're going to accept it and assent to it, or you're going to dispute it and demand payment. It's one of the. Now, hold on. We're going to move around. We're going to move around one more time. I got one more. Let me look. Can I find anything in here that's useful for me? Let me look. Let me see. Let me show you how you start. Because I got to teach y'all. Y'all don't want to do no work, no reading, nothing. So I'm going to have to show you how you do this, right? Y'all see this right here? See, it says the Bird by the Birds Law Act. You ever seen this before? Let's look this up. Let me show you how to start. Let me teach the people, right? Because they don't want to read. They don't want to read, right? So, Brother Isaiah, I'm about to take you. Did you know the Indian Code had a Birds Act? You didn't know that? Well, let me show you. Let Brother Isaiah, let me talk to you one time, baby boy. Let me talk to you one time, right? Check this out. So, this is called the Birds Law Act, right? Or I'm on fire. It says, whereas by order made under the Indian Foreign Jurisdiction Order in the Council, 1902, right? So this came out in 1902. Let's go to it. Let me see. All right, let me go back. This ain't the actual act. Let me find the actual act. I'm gonna come back to that. Transfer of Property Act. Hold up, y'all. Oh, excuse me. All right. I'm gonna come back to the Birds Act. I'm gonna bring something up real quick to show you. All right, so we got this act right here, right? All right, so this act right here is known as the